What's up, amigos? This is Dave from AdventureAmigos.net, here to review the Comm by Tiger. It came out in 1997. This is the original. I've had it since I bought it back in 1997. Interesting design choices. Does a few things that the Nintendo Game Boy didn't do, which was the reigning champion of handhelds at the time. Overall, just a really shitty system. But, like I said, it did do some things that the Game Boy did not do. Innovation, I guess you could call it. Mainly, let's start off with the touchscreen. Now, I can show you in some videos how this thing works and looks, but it's so crappy that there's no point in even turning it on because you won't see it in this video. So you have this cool little stylus here, which you could, play around. When you turn the Comm on, you were greeted by a small little menu that would have a planner where you could enter your friends' phone numbers, addresses, keep people's information in there. There was a game of solitaire, there was a calendar, and that was about it. We'll talk a little bit about the Comm's internet capability, but before we do that, let's just go over some of the features here. So you have 4 buttons, unlike the Game Boy that only had 2, A and B. The Comm has A, B, C, D, a menu button, a sound button, a pause button, on and off button, and the little directional pad here. A little speaker here. Terrible sound, but we will kind of go over that as well. Let's look at the bottom. You have a you have a headphone jack if you want to play without bothering others. On the side, you have a contrast slider and a volume slider. The contrast slider is invaluable on the Comm. As I said, this screen sucks so bad that depending on where you are, where you're playing it, the lighting might be different. You're going to be constantly adjusting this contrast slider, just so you know. On the top, you have a DC in for a power block if you can plug it into the wall. You're really lucky if you find one of these things. I've never seen one ever. They exist supposedly, but good luck finding one. Here you have the Comm Port, which I was kind of mentioning the Comm's internet connectivity earlier. This little cap would come off, and what you would do is you would actually buy a modem made by Tiger, meant exclusively for this Comm handheld. What you'd do is you'd plug that into a phone jack, and it was 14.4 by the way, so it was incredibly slow by today's standards. Plug it into the Comm here, and what you were able to do was go online through Tiger's service, and it required a monthly fee. You could go online, check your email, upload high scores. That was about it. No Comm game was actually multiplayer, so it was kind of bullshit that they even put it on there in the first place. Overall, it just sucked. Anyway, we'll get to that. On the back, pretty standard, just the back of a handheld. You do have a little compartment here. This is where the internal battery is. So, folks, this was before internal memory, flash memory, any of that. So your saves and everything got saved to a little battery backup. Just kind of like the Legend of Zelda Nintendo cartridge. A little battery backup in there. Which also meant, unfortunately, that if the battery went down, so did your games. You lost everything, your SOL. Here's the battery compartment. Standard feature of old handhelds, old tech. Everything used to run on batteries, amigos. The battery life was actually pretty decent on the Comm. Not quite as good as the Game Boy, but not bad either. So here is where the game cartridges go. Interesting thing about the Comm, as you can see, 2 game slots. Really, there was no point other than the fact that they had talked about possibly making games that would have to fit on 2 cartridges. That way, you could just put them both in there and you'd be good to go. You wouldn't have to swap them out. Also kind of good, I guess, maybe if you're going on a road trip or you're going out for a hike or a walk and you want to take your little Comm with you. Load up 2 of your favorite games and you're good to go. So the games I have here are Lights Out, which came with the Comm system. It sucks ass. Really tried to be kind of like the Tetris of the Comm. Never really worked out. Duke Nukem 3D, decent graphics, decent digitized voice. It's the one thing that the Comm actually was able to pull off a fair amount of voice. Something that the Game Boy tried to do. If you know Duke Nukem 3D, it's time to kick ass and chew bubblegum, and I'm all out of gum. Versus a Game Boy like... So, I mean, the Comm was able to kind of do that. Now, on the flip side, the music was terrible, and it was slow, and it was choppy, much like the graphics. But overall, graphically, it did look a little bit better. They were able to pull off some interesting things, especially in The Lost World, Jurassic Park. But then again, that said, it's a very inferior system. They just didn't back it. You had games like Resident Evil. You had games like Duke Nukem, obviously, as you can see. But nonetheless, a piece of video gaming history, the Comm by Tiger. So I'm Dave, AdventureAmigos.net. Thanks for listening.